ghost story and horror film addict.
2023 was a really good year for horror films. We had Megan, Evil Dead Rise, and Talk to Me. These were all pretty big hits, and all of them are really solid movies. 2024, however, that's not been as strong. Longlegs was a good movie, and it did well, but otherwise this year, it's just not held up to last year in the horror genre. Now, this past weekend, Afraid was released. It's a new horror film starring John Cho and Catherine Waterston, brought to us by horror studio Blumhouse. So what do we have here? Is this a horror success, one of the few for this year, or is it yet another flop? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot to the movie Afraid.
Let's talk.
So here we find Curtis Pike. He's played by John Cho. He's an executive for a marketing company. His company is approached by a tech company that has developed this revolutionary AI that is designed to help families. Curtis, his wife and 3 kids are selected to test this new device. It's a digital assistant called Aya. It takes smart homes to the next level. As Aya begins to learn everyone's behavior and anticipates their needs, it begins to slowly do more and more for them, making itself indispensable. But as it grows in knowledge and power, it soon makes sure nothing and no one gets in the family's way. So what works in this film? Well, John Cho and Catherine Waterston are quality actors. They bring Curtis and his wife to life. And as the stakes raise in the film, each performer turns in a good performance. Also, I love the voiceover work done by actress Havana Rose Liu. She plays Melody in this, who is an employee of the company that created Aya, but she also does the voice of Aya. And she's really great. She's conveying both a caring but underlying threatening tone as the AI grows in its knowledge. As a big fan of the Terminator and Battlestar Galactica movies and TV shows, I love stories of AI becoming self-aware and dangerous. And also, I enjoyed the very end of the film. I won't spoil it, but I will say that, we don't always need a happy ending. So it doesn't work here is that while it's a solid story, it's not very original. I mean, we've seen this story told before and in much more detail than we get here. And that's the biggest issue. It's kind of predictable. Also, the film appears to be missing its entire second act, which is a shame since certain elements of the final third act could have been milked for a greater payoff of the tension. But it's all but absent. It's like we go from, the initial setup to the very end. If we had a slower build-up to the final act, it may not have been any more original, but at least it could have made the film more creepy. The film's setup is well crafted, allowing the audience to feel the creeping dread as Aya begins to overstep the boundaries and become more powerful. But just as the film seems to be settling into a compelling psychological thriller, it just ends. And while I did like the very end, a lot more meat is needed on this bone. So while I do not think this is going to rise to the level of horror hits of the last year, and while there's no need to see it in a theater, I can recommend it as a pretty decent, well-acted, but otherwise unspectacular movie worth your streaming time. There are definitely worse ways to spend 90 minutes.
Sure. Why not?
Well, that's all I have for this week. Tune in next week where I give you my thoughts and feelings on whatever I've seen. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment or a question. Share this video with friends and enemies alike. And as always, thank you for giving me your valuable time. And I'll see you next week. Take care.